Hey guys, hope you're doing well. It's Craig here from lifesuccessfactors.com. I hope you've been having a great day. And look, I understand that right now there is a lot of uncertainty and fear, and we just don't know what's going on in our world. And with everything going on with the virus and the lockdowns, it's quite understandable to be quite, I suppose, fearful about a lot of things in our life. But I think one area that we can really take control of is our mindset when it comes to money. So in today's video, guys, I want to be focusing on the money myths that are actually holding us back from moving forward in life. Okay, so I'm going to focus on 6 myths. Okay, and we're going to go through them one by one, and I want to give you my personal experience when it comes to busting these myths and how I actually held a lot of these myths as being true in my life. So guys, stay tuned for the rest of this video, and I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel down below. Leave me a like, leave me a comment. Do you believe in any of these myths, or do you think that you've successfully busted these myths for yourself? So without any further ado, guys, let's actually get into today's video. So myth number 1, I'm rubbish with money. Now, guys, it's quite easy to fall into this trap where we get into this mindset that we think that we're not good with money. We think that money is the root of all evil, and we think that, look, because we've never been taught how to spend our money, how to save it, how to invest it, we actually start getting into this self-fulfilling prophecy where, because we think that we're rubbish with money, we actually don't use money in the most efficient way, or we don't have sort of an open mindset when it comes to money. So let's first think about why do we think like this. And sometimes it's often how were we brought up. Okay, were we brought up with the concept of, well, money is something that we'll never be able to learn how to get more of, or have we had some of these limiting beliefs which have basically told us that, look, times are always tough. It's very hard to get put food on the table, to move forward in life, to buy that house, to buy that car, to basically make sure that we've got enough money not only for today but for the future, that we get into this cycle where we keep thinking that we can't get out of this rut. So what I'd like to say to you guys is that we can actually take a conscious step to move forward. We can take this conscious step to actually tell ourselves that, look, I can change my mindset with money, and I can actually use money to my advantage. Okay, now we have to be deliberate about this. So if we want to make a change in any area of our life, we actually have to make sure that we are deliberate about it. So we need to be thinking about, what can I control and what can I do today to set me up for a better tomorrow. So in order to get rid of this mindset that, I'm rubbish with money, I've got to tell myself, okay, I will be better with money. I will consciously understand where I'm going to spend my money on. Okay, so I think this myth that we're rubbish with money and that we can't actually use money for our own beneficial purposes, I think we can bust this myth, because it's all about being deliberate. Okay, so myth number 2, I can't afford it. Now, we all like nice things. I myself, I like shiny things. I like new things. I like going out to the store. I like buying new products. I like my tech. I like new clothes. But sometimes we get stuck into this thinking that I don't have money in my bank account. Obviously, I can't afford this. But why do we find ourselves in a position where we're like that, where we don't have the money to buy the things that we want, that we need? And I think this comes down to the fact that we don't plan. Okay, so by me saying that I can't afford, let's say, a new jacket or a new pair of jeans, that's simply a result of my inaction, my inability to plan for an expense. Okay, so the way we get over this myth, or the way we bust this myth that I can't afford it, is actually by understanding where does our money come from and where does our money go, right? Now, we've all heard of the word our budget, and I know a lot of people don't like setting a budget, but to be honest, setting a budget shouldn't be an overly onerous task. It shouldn't be hard. It can be as simple as you like, okay? I think the first stage to busting this myth is actually understanding where our money is spent, okay? I use a simple spreadsheet that basically I record in it every day. What do I spend my money on? How much am I spending on this particular thing? And also which account it's coming out from. Now, by doing this at the end of the month, I can actually see where I've spent my money for that month. I can see how much money I've spent on food, how much money I've spent on petrol, how much money I've spent on going out, okay? And I can track this from month to month. Now, the beauty of doing this is that if I'm, for example, spending too much money by going out to eat, I've got the information to back it up. And by measuring where I'm spending my money on, I can actually tailor my behavior to stop myself from overspending, okay? I can set myself a limit. Now, guys, it's always very important to set a limit on how much you spend on a certain thing a month, okay? The only way you can do that is actually by having a look at what you've actually spent in the past on this particular item, okay? So if you can't afford something in the future, it's only because you haven't been able to budget for it, right? So to be able to bust this myth, okay, we need to understand where our money is spent, okay? And only by doing that can we plan for where we spend our money in the future. Now, myth number 3, budgets are boring. Now, we've just talked about budgets, and to be honest, to be able to bust this myth, we've got to think about why are they boring? Well, a lot of people don't actually want to spend the time to make a budget that actually works. And therefore, we get into this position where we create budgets, but we never stick to them, okay? Because they're unrealistic. And we lose interest in them, okay? And hence the boring part, we lose interest, okay? If we want budgets to be exciting, to be sexy, we've got to make sure that they're actually realistic. Now, this links back to the previous myth that we just busted about understanding where we've spent our money on, okay? By doing this, we're actually setting ourselves up for success in the future. We're setting ourselves up to a position where we can make a realistic budget. We can identify what our wants are and our needs are, right? Now, guys, we always want to be focusing on what are our needs, okay? So we need to be thinking about things like rent, maybe our mortgage payments, how much do we spend on groceries, how much do we spend on petrol, or how much do we spend for tickets for public transport. These are the things that we actually need to make sure that we're able to live life, okay? Now, that's our basic spending. If we look at our discretionary spending, we've got things such as going out to eat at restaurants, takeaway, certain types of clothes. Maybe there's a new pair of running shoes that cost $200, and you've got to ask yourself, do you really need it, or is it a nice to have, right? So once we categorize these things into basic needs or necessities versus wants, we can start to have a think about, or we can start to get a bit of an idea of where we should be spending our money on, rather than where we can be spending our money. Now, myth number 4, don't save until debt is paid. Now, guys, it's important to recognize that there are all sorts of debts, okay? There can be good debt and there can be bad debt. If you've read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, you'll know that not all debt is equal, okay? When you take on debt that is used to purchase an asset that appreciates in value, that's usually seen as debt that is a lot better than debt that's used to purchase things that actually lose their value over time. So a good example of this is a house, right? If you take out a mortgage to buy a house, you're buying an asset that hopefully will appreciate over time, or generally appreciates over time. Whereas if you take out debt, for example, to as a personal loan to buy a car, or to or credit card debt where you're buying things that you don't really need, like more TVs or gaming consoles that, yep, they're nice to haves, but if you get to a point where you can't sustainably hold that debt and you're crippled by the massive amounts of interest payments, then that's obviously a bad sort of debt, because you're unable to service that loan. Okay, so guys, the first thing that I'll say to you when it comes to debt is to actually understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, right? There's plenty of information out there on the internet, and maybe I'll leave this for another video, but once you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, you can actually understand what it takes to be able to pay that off, right? So the one thing I will say to you guys is, and someone like Dave Ramsey or Graham Stephan says all the time, is if you've got high interest debt, it's obviously preferable to pay that off as quickly as you can, so that you don't allow it to actually snowball over time, right? Now, if you do have debt such as a home loan, obviously you're going to be paying that off every month. But this shouldn't stop you from saving money in addition to that, right? Now, this all goes back to understanding what you spend your money on, right? And we keep going back to that dreaded B word, which is the budget. So you need to understand where you spend your money on a monthly basis, and understand how much money you're putting aside to pay your rent or to pay your mortgage down, and how much money you can sort of have left over to also save. And it's always a good idea to save as well as pay down debt, right? Now, myth number 5, it's too early to plan for retirement. Now, I know a lot of you guys are actually very young that are watching this video, and I know that retirement seems very far away, like, it might be 30, 40, 50 years even away for you. But the one thing that I will say for you guys is to always work towards a goal where you can retire as early as you can, right? Now, if you are quite happy to keep working until you're 60 or 65, that's fine. But you need to always be planning for that time when you will stop trading your time for money, right? So you want to be thinking about things such as your superannuation if you're in Australia, or if you're overseas, your country might have a similar sort of retirement account that you can put money aside into, and that can grow over time. And usually, guys, I'm not sure about the specifics in your country, but these retirement accounts usually have special tax treatments. So, you're not taxed as much when you put money in there. You're not taxed as much on the gains. And, when you start drawing down on the money, you're taxed at a concessional rate. So you want to be thinking about how much money you will need in your retirement. It's often good to think about how much money you live on now, and have a think about, is that how much I'll need in retirement? Look, this will require a bit of thinking. So a good place to start is obviously thinking about the sorts of things that you want to be doing in retirement. Do you want to be taking holidays yearly? Do you want to be, for example, eating out, 2 or 3 times a week? Do you want to buy a car every 5 years in retirement? Is there somewhere different in the world that you want to live? Do you want to live in different countries? Do you want to be, do you want to move from house to house? These are all sorts of things that you need to think about, so you can plan for in retirement, okay? And the reason you need to do that now is that you need to set yourself up so that you're putting enough money aside for that nest egg, to grow that nest egg, so that when it comes time for you to retire, you can start drawing down on that nest egg, okay, either through dividends or a certain taking a certain portion of that retirement account and drawing that down, okay. Generally, there are some rules of thumb. Okay, there was a study done, I think, out of Trinity College, and it basically talks about the 4% rule. Okay, now guys, I'm not a financial advisor, so please speak to your licensed financial professional. But essentially, the stock market increases at a certain percentage a year, and if you are putting money in the stock market, the 4% rule says that on average you can withdraw 4% from your investment account, okay, while still letting it compound over time, so you don't erode your capital base. All right, and that basically means that that 4%, whatever that amount is, as a percentage of your total investment, that'll be how much you can safely draw down on. Okay, and now guys, the key thing to remember is that 4%, you've got to be able to ascertain whether that amount is actually sufficient for you to live on in retirement, right? And this all goes back to understanding your budget, how much you actually need to spend on outgoings such as food, rent, utilities. Will you still have a mortgage to pay off in retirement? Are there any other discretionary items of spending such as gadgets, electronics, overseas holidays, for example? So I want you guys to be thinking about these things and start planning for them today. The sixth myth is that thinking my money problems will only be solved by winning the lottery. Now, guys, this is a very defeatist statement, and I certainly don't subscribe to this fact. No matter how much you earn, guys, it doesn't really how much you earn. What matters is how much you save at the end of the day. So it's all about restricting the amount that goes out of your account at the end of the month, okay, and maximizing how much you're able to retain. And then it's about what you do with that money to be able to grow it over time so that you can build your wealth, right? Now, obviously, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for winning the lottery, but obviously, the chances of that are quite low, and you don't really have a lot of influence on that outcome. So the things that you can do today are to understand how much money you can save, how much money you can invest, so that you can actually put a target on how much money you will need in retirement, right? So let's bust that myth, because your money problems are fully in your control, all right? You can take charge over how much money you spend at the end of the month. You can also take control over how much money you can potentially earn, right? So there's nothing holding you back from going out there, getting a second job, starting a business on the side. Maybe you're an amazing photographer, and say you work for a company, doing whatever you do, you can start a business on the side by taking photos, by taking portraits. Maybe you can ask your friends and family if they'd like you to take photos at an event that they're holding. Maybe you can take photos for them to put on their LinkedIn page. There are things that you can do to start earning money on the side that'll allow you to, that'll help you with some of the problems that you may have with your money, that you can start to remedy by, let's say generating more income. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. There are a number of myths that hopefully we've been able to bust today. And going back to having these myths hold us back, the number one thing that I will say to you guys is that start thinking about where you spend your money, because by doing that, you can actually start planning for the future. You can start planning for hopefully reducing your debt over time and growing your wealth, right? So guys, subscribe to my channel, hit that like button, let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below. Do you agree that these myths can be busted? What have you done to pay down your debts? What have you done to grow your wealth over time? I'd love to know. I'd love to hear from you guys. And I'm sure that everyone else on this video would love to hear how you guys have been able to grow your wealth over time and maybe bust these myths. So let me know what you thought. if you'd like, leave a review for this video. I'll also be releasing a podcast on this, and also I'll be going into greater detail on my blog over at www.lifesuccessfactors.com. Okay, guys, until next time, stay healthy, stay well, and I hope you achieve success in all areas of your life. Until next time, I'll see you then.